Welcome to Soul Basic Soul Chat. Today we are talking with Andy Garcia Ruse. I hope I said that right.
You did.
Um,
Roost like goose.
Andy is a former mental health therapist and addictions counselor. She is currently an audiobook narrator, a writer, and a coach. Andy is one of the sweetest people I have come to know and one of the most positive. A few years ago, she went through a horrific car crash that left her with a traumatic brain injury. Andy, we are so happy that you're here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you.
I wonder
Welcome.
if you can maybe share some of the memories you have surrounding that car accident and what it was like coming back from that.
Yeah. Um, well, at the time, like you said, I was a mental health therapist and I had kind of risen to the top of the proverbial career ladder and in those executive roles and really doing my dream job. Um, and unfortunately, one night we were driving and somebody was texting and driving and they hit us. I had my daughter in the back and I unfortunately sustained a brain injury and then obviously physical injuries as well, like neck, back, ankles, the wrists, all that jazz. So I spent the first couple of years doing physical therapy, speech therapy, occipital, vestibular therapy, vision therapy, OT, mental health therapy for trauma for like 2 years, 3 days a week. And it was a lot. And unfortunately, I had found out when I went to renew my license that you can't have a TBI and be a practicing therapist. And so I had to retire from being a mental health therapist. And so that's kind of what has brought me over to moving out of that industry.
Wow, that's such a story. Your daughter, she was okay? It was
Yeah,
everyone
I
else
mean,
in the car good?
she was little, so she was blessedly in like a 5-point harness, and so
Okay.
she sustained like minimal, bruises and lacerations, and minimal head injury. But she did as well undergo some treatment as well, and still does, like me. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very thankful that it could have been worse. So I will be just saying that I'm happy to be alive.
Yeah, thank your lucky stars. My goodness. Um, Last month I saw a post that you had put up. It was the four like it was a 4 year anniversary of you having that car crash. Um Looking at like I had a hard time looking at that collage of photos that you had put together. It was traumatic for me to watch. I can't even imagine what you had gone through. Can you tell us one of the reasons why you put up a post like that?
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I've kind of, through this journey, had to decide early on how I was going to approach this. Either I was going to be kind of ashamed and embarrassed about having this new injury and this new life and no longer being a therapist and kind of fade into the background, or I could be vocal about it and share my story, educate people about brain injuries because to be honest, it was something that me, even as a therapist who had had TBI patients as clients, truly didn't understand. We're not taught a lot about it in graduate school. And so I decided to take the path less traveled. And so I decided I was going to be in the forefront, educating people about TBIs, sharing my journey of hope and recovery. And on the flip side of that, over the years, because I'm a really naturally optimistic and positive person, I'm the Enneagram 7, so I kind of like the joie de vivre for life. Somebody had pointed out that they never really thought I kind of had any downs or lows or valleys, that I always seemed great. And I was like, ooh, maybe I've done a disservice because there's a lot more behind the scenes that people don't see on social media because they're not here in my day-to-day life. And I try to always, no matter what, genuineness and authenticity is important. But I realized that maybe I had um, kind of uh, diminished a little bit the severity of things. So I was like, let me see if I can dig and find a little bit of snapshots into what my life actually looks like. Because, like I said, I think that's a disservice to the disability community that people just think everything's, roses. So I went back through my camera roll for the last 4 years, which I'm sure you can imagine it was really hard. It was really hard to like find those images and kind of re-experience some of those feelings. And so that's kind of what led me to kind of post a glimpse into the challenges of like what people don't see behind the scenes.
Yeah. Thank you for being so brave to do that. Thank you for taking that road less traveled to educate people. What is your life like now? Like if you compare your life, what it was like before the accident, like what is a day in the life of Andy now compared to what it was like
Ooh.
before?
Um, Sometimes I feel like it's surreal in a dream because if I step back and look at things objectively, it doesn't feel like this is my life in that I still remember how I was before,
Yeah.
like the old me. And I thought that was like a really easy life. And this new life, it's a challenge every single day. Every single day is a challenge. And I think I went from kind of having an easy life to being a persistent daily warrior. I think that I'm built for that at least. And I don't think everybody could handle it. But I think day to day, I struggle with everything from physical symptoms to cognitive symptoms, and I had to push through. And I'm sorry I'm going off of a tangent, so please
No,
redirect
please.
me back to something I struggle with my words, so I
No, please go ahead.
apologize. Um, so yeah, I think behind the scenes, um, every day, like I struggle with, for those of you who don't have familiarity with traumatic brain injuries, so I have a lot of frontal lobe damage, which impacts my executive functioning skills, which are things that can be as simple as your ADLs, the activities of daily living. So, like getting clothes on, getting ready, showering, getting food prepared, organization, planning. I have memory recall problems. I have word finding problems. I have aphasia. And those are just some of the things, in addition to like the seizures and the hemiplegia, that are all tied together. So, it's a challenge every single day that I just have to fight through. So, I hope I answered your question.
You did. And you just, I'm feeling actually quite emotional and teary just thinking about it. Thank you for being so honest and so real and so raw to tell us, what it's like. I know it can't be easy. And I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that you survived and that you can be a spokesperson. I mean, we're definitely not, I never want anything like this to happen to anybody that I care about or anybody for that matter at all. But when it does, if you can find um, some type of meaning and perspective
Yes.
for it and to be able to help others and be that spokesperson, like I applaud you and thank you for doing that for
Yeah.
everyone.
And I think that's been important for me too, because like I mentioned, like even when I posted that anniversary video, I had therapist friends who were like, "Oh, I didn't know this," or "I didn't know this about TBIs." And I was like, case in point. So I've reached out to people like even from, because I used to be a graduate level professor, so I would teach at the master's level. And I was like, why can't we have more education about brain injuries and teaching therapists and social workers and other people in the medical industry, especially in modern Western medicine? I would say that it's been very lacking in understanding and treatment. And I was very blessed to have a super amazing sports medicine physician who specialized in brain injuries. But if I didn't, it would have been a whole different journey because a lot of my friends in the community, they didn't have that fortunate experience. So they have been kind of shuffled off into like an abyss or like a purgatory where they're kind of lost and nobody's able to help them.
Yeah. Do you ever think that maybe you would be like a consultant for, or maybe you already are a consultant for, some of the therapists or some of the like the colleges for brain injury?
I do have therapists, friends of mine from the past, or colleagues or acquaintances who reach out and ask questions quite frequently, actually, about, TBI patients or just in general brain injuries. And I've been working with a psychologist who is doing research into it. And there's just a need for more research to be done. And I would absolutely consult to try to
Yeah,
do more education. So, yes, that is definitely in the back of my mind.
that's wonderful. Um, Okay, so going from mental health therapist to audiobook narrator, can you tell us about that progression? Because that is like very, like, that's quite the spectrum.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, just to give an example, because I also did, I had subspecialty licensures as a registered play therapist. So I would specialize in childhood trauma, like ages like 2 to 12. I was also an addictions counselor and an interventionist and a trauma specialist. So I had very strong patient populations that were very emotional. And I was literally on call 24/7. So my life looked so different pre-accident than it does now. And after the accident, I mean, truthfully, like the first year, I always kind of joke that I was kind of a vampire because I have some sensory processing disorders now. I struggle with light, I struggle
Mm,
with sounds. Um, so anytime I would go into public, I'd have to wear like noise canceling ear things and sunglasses. And so my house would always just be really dark and very quiet. And it was hard. I had to grieve the old me first.
mm,
And I was sitting there, and finally, as I've kind of moved through this first year and kind of moved towards through the grieving process into acceptance, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Because I'm not the kind of person who could just sit idly by and just kind of let life go. I just can't. I've had the nickname of Energizer Buddy. I'm like, go, 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 go. So
yeah.
I was like, what am I going to do? And I was just like, okay, Lord, open to suggestions here. What could I do? And I found an old journal from one of my positions where I was working in the addictions field. And it was like, says like, what are your 5-year goals? And one of them said, narrate an audiobook and finish writing your book. And I was like, oh my goodness, I forgot about that. And it was just kind of like one of those like thoughts in the back of my mind.
Right.
And because I was in speech therapy, learning how to like, talk again, which was a big deal for me because I had done a lot of public speaking. That was like a big part of my life. And to
Mhm.
go from that to stuttering to not being able to find words, it was just the ultimate low. I would I was so embarrassed and I had a lot of shame surrounding that. So I would go into my closet and just practice reading books aloud so I could say things because I didn't want anybody else to hear me because I was so embarrassed about how I would sound. And I fell in love with reading like aloud. And I think it obviously my therapy was amazing. It was the best. But I think it was the catalyst for the change to go really truly momentum forward in my recovery with speech. And that was when I was like, okay, this is something that truly brings me joy. So I immediately started searching how could I become an audiobook narrator? And I reached out to a really famous audiobook narrator, Sean Pratt, and was like, hey, I'd love to do some coaching. And so I spent like, I don't know, 8 months researching this because I didn't even know if I was going to be cognitively capable of doing this with my limitations. And it was just, I don't know, it was a blessing. It was the perfect fit for me because I'm in a every day in a studio that's, kind of soundproof. So it's low stimulus. I'm reading. Now, granted, my life does not look like most narrators. They narrate for hours and hours, and I can't do that. I'm just being frank. I probably would be considered a part-time narrator, even though I'm doing it for my full time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I take a lot of naps and such. I don't have a lot of spoons, for those of you who are familiar
Yeah.
with spoon theory.
Here I
But that's
am.
kind of what brought me into the audiobook side of things.
That's that's incredible. I resonate with you so much. Thank you for sharing that, of all. I had suffered septic shock a few
Oh,
years
wow.
ago, and coming back from that was really difficult for me. There's just the I didn't I wasn't at the level of actually having like a brain injury, but I couldn't find my words. I had lost some of my memory. Um, I I couldn't, the cognitive ability wasn't there to be able to piece things together. So, I mean, I don't know what it was like for you, but I know what it was like for me, even in just that little bit. And when you were talking about how you would sit and read in the closet, I would do jigsaw puzzles just to try to put the pieces back together. And it's amazing how therapeutic it was, not just for my mind to actually put pieces together, but it felt like I was putting the pieces of my life back
Oh,
together,
it's
every
beautiful
puzzle I did.
symbolism. And I
And
just, I too do jigsaw puzzles too. That's amazing. I feel like
and
there's like the same
doesn't
reasoning behind it.
it really does help
Yes. Hmm.
with that cognitive ability
Yes.
to just be able to, put your brain into putting,
Mhm.
those things together, the colors and the pieces and the shapes and
So hard
whatnot.
for me, but yes,
It is
yes.
so hard. I know. I get that. I remember how hard it was. But and then I suffered sepsis again last September, and it wasn't as bad. But again, back to the jigsaw puzzle, back to the drawing board, having to be able to do that again to so that I didn't. Yeah, I get in a small way of what you
Yeah.
have gone through, in a very, very small way. And your story resonates with me just incredibly. Um, but I also want to say, like, so I was sneaking on your website. I was kind of creeping your website and looking at all the different voices that you do, not looking, but listening to all the different voices that you do. So from a person that had traumatic brain injury to reading aloud in closets to going through all of that, and now it's not just like an American accent that you do for like your own voice, but you are doing all kinds of different accents, which is incredible. Like, I'm just amazed by you. Um, can you share maybe a couple?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for whatever reason, after the accident, it's like the parts of my brain that have anything to do with the creative side,
Yeah.
they have come alive even more than old me. Like old me had a lot stronger skills when it related to, anything administrative or things like that. And those, I'll be honest, those skills have pretty much dissipated. And it's a really struggle. But it's like I already was naturally inclined to be that way. I've always been a storyteller and a writer and a singer and all that stuff. And if anything, it's just become brighter after the accident. So I think it was like a meant to be that I could lean into it. Now, obviously, like I said, memory recall, that's an issue. That's why I don't pursue like, stage acting or anything like that, because I can't memorize lines.
Right.
That's why audiobooks works, because they're right in front of me and I can read them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just so it comes naturally for me. I have no idea how.
Oh, it's so amazing. So oh, no, what was it? You did you do an English accent. I'm putting you
Um,
on the spot.
I know. It's like I have to have something to read with it. I'm like, I don't know if I could just do it because my brain won't think.
Okay, then don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But for our viewing
But yeah,
audience,
go to my website and you
go
can
to
check
her
out all the
website
accents.
because it's incredible. Like everything that Andy can do, it's absolutely incredible. Oh, thank you so much. Um, and you're still helping people. So you're not just eh, like you were a therapist because you had that desire to help people, but now you're still helping people because you're a coach.
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I obviously I as a therapist, I believe in therapy. And so I've had my own therapy working through the trauma component of it at first, because I had pretty bad PTSD following the accident. Like it was pretty bad. And then I moved into just more like coaching and therapy about like life skills and such. And my therapist kept saying, "You're still the helper in your heart.
Yeah.
Have you thought about using that helper desire to continue to help other people?" And I was like, well, yeah, I would love to, but I can't be a therapist. And so I had to sit down and think, well, what do I know? Like, what am I good at that I could actually help somebody with? Because I
Right.
see that there's tons of people that do coaching or consulting and things, and that's great. But if that's not something they're super passionate about or, excel as a subject matter expert, then it's not going to be good. And I only can do something that is right there with me. So for me, what I have done is use some of my strengths from both before the accident and after the accident and combined them. So I used to do what's called B2B business development. And in that, it's kind of like within the umbrella of sales. But
Mhm.
instead of selling like widgets, you're selling yourself, you're selling services, etc. And so when I had my team that I managed, it's all about teaching them how to brand themselves and market themselves. And so those skill sets came really naturally to me, mostly because obviously I have the psychology background, but I also have a master's in sociology. And so I had this understanding of people at their core. So I combined those together, like the psychology, the sociology, and the marketing and social media. And that's just been something I've really excelled at. And so many other audiobook narrators, that's not something that is a strong suit for them. I'm kind of an anomaly. I'm an extremely big extrovert. A lot of my co-narrators, they're introverts. And I don't have a problem hearing the word no. I don't have a problem with sales or outreach or marketing. And a lot of them do. So I was like, let me help them. I know they could be successful. I can help them. So that's kind of where that came about.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that you're still helping people, that, that's the core of you. That really is. And I love that about you. You have this radiant light that just shines out. You really do.
Thanks.
So what makes your soul soar?
Oh, I thought about this, something similar to this the other day. I was doing some like meditation and just journaling, and I was like, what brings me joy? So I think that's kind of like a similar thing, like what's making my soul soar? Because I've been like really looking into life now that I'm a couple years out, 4 years out. Because at the 2 year marker, they say this is your level of functioning from here on out. No further therapeutic progression is going to occur. So once I hit that, I was like, okay, this is really me. And now I get to enjoy life, and I have to make sure I have that pleasure. From a life perspective, I will say that pre-accident, I was a little career focused. I'm going to be honest, because I was on call 24/7. So my patients were everything to me. I mean, and rightfully so, in that many of them were suicidal or were in the middle of a drug binge. And so there was life and death cases all the time. But
Mhm.
that took me away from my life, my family, my friends, my siblings, my husband, my daughter, etc. And this accident actually forced me to slow down. I told you they used to call me the Energizer Bunny, blah, 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 blah. And even though I'm like Andy 2.0, it's like I've mellowed out a little bit. One day my sister was looking at me and she was like, "You're so different." I was like, "I am?" She's like, "Yeah." And I know what she means, because I'm not that same like driven in that way. Everything I do now is with intention. If it doesn't bring me joy, then I'm not going to do it. So my focus of what brings me like joy is actually enjoying the little things. Like I have one child, and I just sit there and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to save her every day because she's going to grow up faster than I think. Oh, I'm getting emotional.
Oh.
And I am going to be a wife, and I'm going to be a friend that I couldn't be before because I was always working. And as silly as it sounds, I get so much joy from doing these audiobooks and getting to write and be creative. It makes me so happy. I enjoy it so much. This the act of storytelling. It makes me feel alive because I'm getting to live other experiences and characters, especially for me because I don't really drive a lot anymore, and I don't really go anywhere. So I'm kind of trapped in some ways. I think I get to live vicariously through my books. So
Yeah.
sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I'm very teary as well. Just tears of joy. It's Thank you so much, Andy. Like, this has been wonderful. And your story, your life is going to resonate with so many people in this group and in this world. And I'm just so grateful for you. Seriously, so
Thanks.
grateful for you. And just keep having joy with it in your life, and keep living, and just keep creating and helping people. And that's all that one can ever ask, right?
Absolutely. I think there's so much joy to be found with gratitude
Yeah.
and helping others, because when we take the focus off of ourselves and put it onto somebody else, there's a type of joy and freedom that we experience that we could never have if we were inwardly focused. So that's
Yeah,
one of my biggest goals, is focusing on others. So
that's beautiful. Thank you. I hope that we can have you back again. This was amazing.
thank you
Yeah.
for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Oh, thank you so much. And we will chat
Welcome.
again very soon.
Okay.